A lonely billionaire, Lucien Duval, receives an unexpected invitation from Margot Bellamy, the housekeeper of his recently deceased mother, Emily Duval, for Christmas. What follows is incredible. What secrets will unfold when Lucien Duval steps back into his family estate for Christmas, guided by a simple invitation that could change everything? Before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching the video from. And don't forget to subscribe. In the heart of a city adorned with twinkling lights, Lucien sat alone in his opulent penthouse, a monument to his success and solitude. The towering glass windows framed a breathtaking view of the skyline, a glittering testament to the wealth he had amassed over the years. Yet, despite the luxury that surrounded him, fine art adorning the walls, plush furniture, and the faint scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air, an overwhelming emptiness seeped into his bones. The recent death of his mother, Emily, cast a long shadow over the festive season, a time typically filled with joy and warmth. Instead, it was marked by a profound sense of loss and introspection. Lucien's gaze drifted toward the fireplace, where a fire crackled softly, its warmth failing to penetrate the chill that had settled in his heart. He could almost hear his mother's laughter echoing through the halls of their family estate, a sound that now felt like a distant memory. Their relationship had always been complicated, riddled with misunderstandings and unfulfilled expectations. Lucien had spent years trying to carve out his own identity, often at odds with his mother's traditional views and desires for him. As he sat there, he couldn't help but reflect on the years of estrangement that had grown like a thorny vine between them, wrapping tighter as time passed. He recalled the countless holidays spent apart, the phone calls that had dwindled into silence, and the invitations left unanswered. Each memory was a stab of regret, a reminder of all the words left unsaid, the apologies unspoken. The holidays, once a time of family gatherings and shared laughter, had become a reminder of what he had lost. Lucien's fingers absently traced the edge of a crystal glass filled with whiskey, the amber liquid swirling as he fought against the tide of emotions that threatened to engulf him. The weight of his mother's absence was suffocating, and the lavish trappings of his life felt like a gilded cage, trapping him within his sorrow. As the evening wore on, Lucien's thoughts drifted to Margot, his mother's devoted housekeeper. She had been a constant presence in their lives, a steady anchor amid the turbulent seas of familial discord. Lucien remembered her warm smile, her gentle guidance, and the way she had always treated him like family, even when he felt like an outsider in his own home. He had received a letter from Margot a few days after his mother's funeral, an invitation to spend Christmas at the estate. The thought of returning to that place filled him with a mix of dread and nostalgia. It was the last place he wanted to be, yet the thought of facing the holidays alone was even more unbearable. The estate loomed large in his mind, a grand structure steeped in memories of a childhood that had been both magical and tumultuous. The sprawling grounds, the towering trees, and the carefully curated gardens had all been witness to the family's history, both the joyous moments and the painful ones. Lucien felt torn between the desire to cling to the remnants of his mother's love and the fear of confronting the ghosts of their past. The room around him felt stifling, the walls closing in as he wrestled with his emotions. With a sigh, Lucien rose from his chair and wandered toward a large oak desk, its surface cluttered with remnants of his mother's life. He began to sort through the papers and photographs, each item a fragment of a memory, a piece of the puzzle that was Emily. As he rifled through the stacks, his heart ached at the sight of her elegant handwriting, the letters filled with affection and warmth. Yet, as he delved deeper, he stumbled upon a sealed envelope addressed to him. The handwriting was unmistakable, and a pang of nostalgia washed over him. Opening the envelope with trembling hands, Lucien unfolded the letter. It was from Margot, inviting him to come home for Christmas, to find solace and perhaps healing in the familiar embrace of the estate. Her words were gentle, filled with understanding and compassion. She wrote of the warmth of the hearth, the scent of pine, and the traditions that had been woven into the fabric of their lives. She spoke of Emily's love for him, a love that had never waned despite the distance that had grown between them. Lucien's heart twisted at the realization that his mother had wanted him to return, to reconnect. But he had ignored her calls, choosing instead to build walls around his heart. As he sank back into the plush leather chair, Lucien felt a swell of emotions crash over him. Sadness, guilt, and a flicker of hope. He could almost hear Margot's voice, urging him to come home, to face the memories and embrace the love that still lingered in the halls of the estate. Yet, the thought of stepping back into that world filled him with trepidation. It was a world that held both cherished memories and painful reminders of the rifts that had formed between him and his mother. The night stretched on as he battled with himself, the clock ticking away the minutes in a steady rhythm that felt both comforting and disconcerting. Lucien poured himself another glass of whiskey, the liquid burning his throat as he swallowed it down. He longed for clarity, for a sign that would illuminate the path forward. Yet, all he found was a haze of uncertainty, a swirling fog that clouded his judgment. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, exhaustion began to creep into his bones. He closed his eyes, seeking refuge in the darkness, but sleep eluded him. Instead, memories danced before him, vivid and raw. His mother's laughter, the warmth of her embrace, the way she had looked at him with pride during moments of triumph. He remembered the times they had shared, the stories told by the fireplace, the lessons learned in the garden. Each memory was a thread, weaving a tapestry of love and loss that he could no longer ignore. As dawn broke, painting the sky with soft hues of pink and gold, Lucien felt a shift within him. The decision loomed before him, clear yet daunting. He realized that to honor his mother's memory, he needed to confront the past, to seek the closure that had eluded him for so long. With a deep breath, he made his choice, the weight of uncertainty lifting ever so slightly. He would accept Margot's invitation. He would return to the estate, to the place that had once been his sanctuary and now felt like a bittersweet reminder of all that had been lost. In that moment of clarity, Lucien understood that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but it was a journey he needed to undertake. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. A hope that perhaps, amid the shadows of grief, he could rediscover the love that had once bound him to his mother and forge a new path forward. As Lucien stepped out of his sleek black car, the air was crisp and the scent of pine filled his lungs. He paused for a moment, taking in the grand estate that had once been his sanctuary during childhood. The mansion stood proudly against the backdrop of a pale winter sky, its stone facade softened by the twinkling holiday lights draped over the eaves and the lush greenery that adorned the entrance. At that moment, he was not just a billionaire returning to his childhood home. He was a son, a man burdened by grief, stepping into the past that he had long ignored. Margot was waiting at the door, her warm smile a comforting sight amidst the swirling emotions. She was a woman of resilience and grace, her hair tied neatly back and her apron dusted with flour. Despite the years that had passed since he last saw her, the familiarity of her presence enveloped him like a warm blanket. She welcomed him inside, and the warmth of the house contrasted sharply with the chill outside. The interior was adorned with decorations that echoed the spirit of the season. A magnificent tree stood majestically in the corner of the living room, its branches laden with glass ornaments, each one glimmering and reflecting the soft glow of the lights. The scent of cinnamon and pine wafted through the air, a reminder of the countless Christmases he had spent here with his mother. Lucien could almost hear her laughter mingling with the crackling of the fire in the hearth. Margot led him through the house, her footsteps echoing softly on the hardwood floors. As they walked, he noticed the small details that had remained unchanged. The family portraits lining the walls, depicting moments frozen in time. A sense of nostalgia washed over him, pulling at the corners of his heart. He glanced at a photograph of Emily, her smile radiant even in the stillness of the frame. Memories of her kindness, her gentle guidance, and the warmth of her embrace flooded his mind, intertwined with the sharp pang of loss. As they moved deeper into the house, Lucien felt the weight of the past pressing down on him. Each room told a story, each corner held a memory. The dining room, once a place of laughter and celebration, now felt heavy with silence. The table was set for dinner, a beautiful display of fine china and crystal glassware, but it lacked the vibrancy he remembered. The absence of his mother was palpable, a void that seemed to echo through the halls. Margot paused in the kitchen, her hands busy preparing a meal. The sound of clattering pots and sizzling ingredients provided a comforting rhythm. Lucien watched her for a moment, appreciating how she poured her heart into every dish, her movements graceful and practiced. He thought of how she had cared for his mother, becoming not just a housekeeper but a confidant and friend. There was a bond between them that transcended the roles they played. As the evening wore on, Lucien felt an uneasy mix of anticipation and trepidation. He wandered through the house, compelled to explore the nooks and crannies that had once been filled with laughter and joy. In the study, he ran his fingers over the polished surface of his mother's desk, recalling the countless hours she had spent working, her brow furrowed in concentration. The shelves were lined with books, volumes of poetry, novels, and memoirs, all bearing the marks of her thoughtful reflection. He moved to the living room, where the tree stood tall and proud. Underneath, a few presents lay wrapped in colorful paper, remnants of a tradition that now felt foreign to him. He knelt to examine them, his heart aching. They were gifts from Margot, tokens of remembrance for a woman who had meant so much to them both. He felt a swell of gratitude and sorrow intertwining in his chest, a bittersweet reminder of the connection they shared through Emily. His gaze drifted to the family photo that hung above the fireplace. It was a portrait of a younger Lucien, beaming with joy beside his mother, whose pride was evident in her eyes. The image resonated deeply within him, stirring a flood of emotions that he had long buried. The laughter of that day felt like a distant echo, overshadowed by the reality of their estrangement. He had let the years slip away, allowing the distance to grow between them, and now, standing in this familiar space, he was confronted with the weight of his choices. As dinner time approached, Margot called him to the table, and he reluctantly joined her. The meal was a labor of love, each dish a testament to the care she had poured into the preparation. They sat together, the table adorned with candles flickering softly, casting a warm glow over their faces. Lucien tried to engage in conversation, but the words felt heavy on his tongue. Instead, he focused on the food, each bite a reminder of the home-cooked meals his mother had prepared with love. Throughout dinner, Margot shared stories of Emily, painting a picture of a woman who had been both strong and vulnerable. Lucien listened intently, his heart aching with both pride and regret. He learned of the challenges his mother had faced, the burdens she had carried silently, and the dreams she had held for him. Each story peeled back layers of misunderstanding, revealing a deeper connection that he had long overlooked. After dinner, Margot excused herself to clean up, leaving Lucien alone in the quiet of the dining room. He felt a pull to the living room once more, drawn by an invisible thread to the tree and the memories it held. Sitting on the couch, he allowed himself to reminisce, the flickering flames in the fireplace casting shadows that danced across the room. In that moment, he felt an overwhelming desire to understand his mother more deeply, to bridge the gap that had grown between them. He recalled the letter from Margot, the invitation that had brought him back to this place. Perhaps there was still time to uncover the truths that had eluded him for so long. As he pondered, Margot returned, her presence grounding him. She carried with her a leather-bound journal, its pages worn and filled with Emily's writing. With a gentle smile, she placed it in front of him, encouraging him to delve into his mother's thoughts and feelings. Lucien's heart raced at the prospect of uncovering the intimate reflections of the woman he had lost. As he opened the journal, the faint scent of his mother's perfume wafted up, enveloping him in a wave of nostalgia. The pages were filled with elegant handwriting, each word a fragment of Emily's soul. He felt a mixture of apprehension and longing as he prepared to embark on a journey through his mother's heart, eager to understand the woman behind the veil of their fractured relationship. In that moment, Lucien realized that this Christmas would not just be a return to the past. It was a chance for healing, a path toward reconciliation, and an opportunity to honor the memory of the woman who had shaped his life in countless ways. He took a deep breath, ready to immerse himself in the words that would illuminate the shadows of his grief and guide him toward a newfound understanding of love, family, and forgiveness. Lucien sat in the dim light of the study, the flickering shadows from the fireplace dancing across the walls, as he opened the worn leather-bound journal. Each page felt delicate beneath his fingers, a tangible connection to his mother, Emily. The scent of aged paper wafted up, mixing with the faint aroma of cedar from the nearby wood. With each word he read, he was drawn deeper into the labyrinth of his mother's thoughts, her regrets spilling forth like ink on the pages, unearthing a tapestry of emotions that had long been buried. As he read, Lucien's heart tightened with a mix of sadness and anger. Emily's words revealed a woman torn by her choices, a mother who had wanted nothing more than to bridge the chasm that had grown between them over the years. She wrote candidly about her fears of losing her only son, of the misunderstandings that had festered like untreated wounds. With every sentence, he could feel her longing for reconciliation, for the connection they had once shared before life had pulled them apart. In one entry, she described a moment from his childhood, a simple afternoon spent in the garden, the sun filtering through the leaves as they planted flowers together. The vivid imagery painted a picture of laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the cold reality of their later years. Lucien felt a pang of longing for those moments, for the mother he had lost to both time and circumstance. His anger flared at the thought that he had let pride and hurt dictate their relationship, pushing her away when all she had wanted was to bring him closer. He flipped through the subsequent pages, each one a confession, a plea for understanding. Emily expressed her regrets about not being there for him during pivotal moments in his life, the way her work consumed her, leaving little room for the nurturing he had needed. The words were a mirror, reflecting back at him the pain of their disconnect. In the quiet of the room, Lucien felt the weight of her sorrow pressing upon him, and tears threatened to spill as he grappled with the complexity of their bond. The sun began to rise, casting a gentle glow through the window, illuminating the dust motes that floated lazily in the air. Lucien closed the journal, the final words echoing in his mind. He felt as if he had unearthed a treasure, a part of his mother that had been hidden away, but he also felt the sting of unresolved emotions. The anger that had simmered beneath the surface now felt misplaced and heavy, as if it had no rightful place in the light of the truths he had just uncovered. The morning air was crisp as Lucien made his way to the garden, the memories of his mother still fresh in his mind. He found Margot tending to the flower beds, her hands deftly working the soil. The garden was a riot of colors, blooming flowers a stark contrast to the somber thoughts that had clung to him earlier. As he approached, he noticed the way Margot moved with purpose and care, her connection to the earth evident in every action. Margot looked up, a smile breaking through her serene demeanor. She had always possessed a quiet strength, a steadfastness that had anchored Emily during turbulent times. Lucien felt an inexplicable comfort in her presence, as if she represented a bridge to the past he had been desperately trying to navigate. The air between them was charged with unspoken understanding, an acknowledgement of the shared grief that lingered like a shadow. As they walked through the garden, Margot began to share stories of Emily that Lucien had never heard, tales of laughter, of quiet moments stolen away from the chaos of life. She spoke of the joy Emily felt when Lucien was born, how she had filled the nursery with flowers and laughter, each detail painting a vivid picture of a mother who had loved fiercely, despite the distance that would later grow between them. Margot's words wove a tapestry of their shared history, and with each story, Lucien felt the shackles of resentment begin to loosen. He realized that his mother had been human, flawed, and imperfect, yet striving to do her best in a world that often demanded too much. The garden, with its vibrant blooms and rich earth, became a symbol of rebirth, of the possibility of healing that lay ahead. As the sun climbed higher, Lucien found a bench nestled beneath a sprawling oak tree and sat down, the rough texture of the wood grounding him. He watched Margot as she watered the plants, her movements serene and purposeful. There was a rhythm to her work that spoke of dedication and love, the same love that Emily had poured into her family, even when it seemed out of reach. Lucien felt a swell of gratitude for Margot, who had remained steadfast through the years, a guardian of his mother's legacy. Their conversation continued, punctuated by moments of shared silence, each one a testament to the bond they were forging in the wake of loss. Lucien found himself opening up, sharing fragments of his own life, his struggles, his triumphs, the loneliness that had enveloped him since Emily's passing. Margot listened intently, her presence a comforting balm for his fractured spirit. It was during one of these quiet moments that Margot revealed something that struck Lucien to his core. Emily had intended to reach out to him before her passing, to mend the rift that had grown between them. Lucien's heart raced as he absorbed this revelation. The notion that his mother had been planning to reconnect, to bridge the gap of years spent apart, ignited a flicker of hope within him. It was a bittersweet realization, a reminder of what could have been, but also a spark for what might still be possible. In that moment, the garden transformed into a sanctuary of possibilities. The flowers around him seemed to bloom brighter, and the sun felt warmer on his skin. Lucien understood that while the past held its share of pain, the future was still unwritten. There was a chance for healing, for forgiveness, and perhaps even for the love that had been lost. As they sat together, the weight of their shared history hung in the air, but it was now tinged with the possibility of renewal. Lucien realized that Margot was not just a housekeeper. She was a keeper of stories, a custodian of memories, and he felt a deep sense of connection to her, one that transcended the boundaries of their roles. They were bound by the love they both held for Emily, their lives intertwined in an unexpected yet beautiful way. With the garden as their backdrop, Lucien began to envision a future where he could honor his mother's memory not just through grief but through love and connection. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Lucien felt the stirrings of hope. As he looked at Margot, her hands still working with the earth, he understood that perhaps the essence of family was not solely defined by blood, but by the bonds forged in love and understanding. As the snowflakes danced gracefully from the overcast sky, blanketing the world in a serene white, the atmosphere inside the grand estate was filled with an unexpected warmth. The soft glow of golden lights twinkled from the meticulously decorated Christmas tree, casting shimmering reflections upon the polished hardwood floors. Lucien stood in the kitchen, his fingers deftly chopping vegetables, while Margot moved around with practiced ease, humming an old tune that echoed the spirit of the season. The sense of rosemary and garlic permeated the air, intertwining with the faint aroma of pine, creating a comforting cocoon that contrasted sharply with the turmoil within him. With each slice of the knife, Lucien felt a sense of normalcy that had long eluded him. The act of preparing a meal, a fundamental expression of care and connection, was a grounding experience. He glanced at Margot, who was expertly arranging a platter of roasted meats, and couldn't help but admire her dedication. Her hands moved with the grace that came from years of service, yet there was a warmth in her demeanor that suggested a depth of friendship he had not anticipated. This woman had stood by his mother through thick and thin, a testament to the unbreakable bond they shared. As they worked side by side, the air was filled with laughter and stories. Margot recounted tales of his mother's mischievous childhood antics, painting vivid pictures of a young Emily, full of life and laughter. Lucien listened intently, his heart warming at the thought of his mother as a carefree girl. It was a side of her that had been eclipsed by the weight of adulthood and the expectations that life had thrust upon her. Each story Margot shared chipped away at the icy walls Lucien had built around his heart, allowing him to confront the loneliness that had settled in after his mother's death. The preparations for dinner became a ritual of sorts, a weaving together of old memories and new beginnings. Margot's laughter echoed in the kitchen as she playfully teased Lucien about his culinary skills, or lack thereof. He found himself smiling, a genuine expression that felt foreign yet liberating. For the first time in a long while, he felt the tendrils of grief loosening their grip, replaced by a flicker of hope. Perhaps this Christmas could mark a turning point, an opportunity to reconnect not only with his mother's memory but also with the world around him. As twilight descended, the estate transformed into a scene straight out of a holiday postcard. The dining room, adorned with candles and festive decorations, beckoned them to gather around the table. They carefully arranged the dishes, taking pride in the feast that would soon be shared. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, a stark contrast to the heavy silence that had engulfed Lucien since his mother's passing. He could almost hear her voice, guiding him, reminding him of the importance of family, of togetherness. Dinner began, and they settled into their seats, the table laden with food that spoke of love and care. The first few bites were accompanied by a comfortable silence, the kind that spoke volumes without the need for words. Lucien's senses were heightened. He could feel the warmth radiating from Margot, the kindness in her eyes as she watched him savor the meal. It was a moment of solace, a brief respite from the chaos of his thoughts. However, the tranquility was abruptly shattered when the doorbell rang, echoing through the halls of the estate. Lucien's heart sank, a feeling of dread washing over him. He had hoped for an uninterrupted evening, one where he could simply bask in the warmth of Margot's company and the memories of his mother. Yet, as Margot rose to answer the door, he could sense the shift in the air, an impending storm that threatened to disrupt their fragile peace. Moments later, Etienne appeared in the doorway, his presence an unwelcome surprise. Dressed in an expensive coat that screamed entitlement, he stepped inside with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. Lucien's stomach tightened as he absorbed the sight of his estranged cousin, a figure from the past that he had long wished to forget. Etienne's arrival felt like the harbinger of conflict, a disruption that could shatter the delicate balance Lucien had begun to find. Margot greeted Etienne with a polite smile, though Lucien could sense the tension in her posture. He remained seated, his gaze fixed on the newcomer, trying to gauge his intentions. Etienne's eyes flickered around the room, taking in the decorations, the lavish table, and the warmth that enveloped the space. There was a calculating look in his eyes, one that made Lucien's skin crawl. He was not here to celebrate. He was here for something else. As they all sat down at the table, the atmosphere shifted. What had begun as a joyful occasion transformed into a tense standoff. Lucien could feel his heart racing, a mixture of resentment and apprehension brewing within him. Etienne wasted no time in addressing the elephant in the room, his voice dripping with insincerity as he began to speak of family wealth and inheritance. Each word felt like a dagger, aimed not just at Lucien's fortune, but at the very fabric of their family's legacy. The conversation took a turn for the worse as Etienne's insinuations became more pointed. He hinted at undisclosed assets, family secrets that could turn the tide of their fortunes. Lucien's mind raced as he tried to process the implications of what Etienne was suggesting. This was not a Christmas reunion. This was an ambush, a calculated attempt to exploit the vulnerabilities that had emerged following his mother's death. Margot's presence beside him was a comforting anchor, yet Lucien could feel the tension radiating from her as well. Etienne's accusations hung heavy in the air, suffocating the remnants of warmth that had filled the room just moments before. Lucien's hands clenched into fists beneath the table, the urge to defend his mother's honor igniting a fire within him. He had spent years building a life away from the shadows of familial drama, yet here he was, thrust back into a world of deceit and betrayal. As the conversation escalated, Etienne's words became sharper, more pointed. He spoke of family betrayal, of how Emily had kept secrets that could fracture their lineage. Lucien felt as if he were being pulled into a vortex of anger and resentment. He could see the glint of triumph in Etienne's eyes as he reveled in the chaos he was creating, feeding off the discord that had begun to fester. Lucien's thoughts spiraled, wrestling with the urge to retaliate. He could feel the weight of his mother's legacy on his shoulders, the love she had poured into their family, now threatened by this unwelcome visitor. Every moment felt like a betrayal of the peace he had just begun to reclaim. The festive spirit that had enveloped the estate moments ago was replaced by an undercurrent of hostility, and Lucien's heart ached for the mother he had lost, the woman who had fought to keep their family together. Yet, even amidst the turmoil, a flicker of resolve began to emerge within him. Lucien realized that he could not let Etienne's words dictate the narrative of their family. He could not allow the darkness of greed and resentment to overshadow the love that had once bound them together. As he looked around the table, he saw Margot's sympathetic gaze, a reminder of the strength that could be found in unity. It was not just his mother's legacy at stake. It was the possibility of healing the rift that had divided their family for far too long. With a deep breath, Lucien steeled himself for the confrontation ahead, determined to reclaim the evening, to honor his mother's memory in a way that transcended material wealth and familial strife. The night was far from over, and the true test of family bonds was about to unfold. The atmosphere in the grand dining room was thick with tension, a palpable silence hanging in the air after Etienne's accusations had been voiced. Lucien felt an unsettling churn in his stomach, a mix of indignation and disbelief. His heart raced as he struggled to maintain composure, grappling with the weight of his cousin's words. The flickering glow of the candles cast dancing shadows across the table, mirroring the tumult of emotions within him. Lucien's gaze flicked to Margot, who stood nearby, her expression a blend of concern and determination. He could see the kindness in her eyes, a silent encouragement that reminded him of the bond they shared, rooted in the memories of his mother. He inhaled deeply, trying to steady himself against the onslaught of memories that rushed forth, memories of a time when family gatherings had been filled with laughter and warmth, not accusations and hostility. Emily was not just her wealth, Lucien finally managed to articulate, his voice steady despite the tremor he felt within. She was love. She was kindness. Our family is defined by so much more than what's in our bank accounts. The words felt like a shield against Etienne's relentless pursuit of financial gain. But as he spoke, he noticed the flicker of uncertainty in Etienne's eyes, a brief moment that suggested his cousin was not as confident as he pretended to be. Etienne's sneer returned, sharp and cutting. Love doesn't pay the bills, Lucien. If there are hidden assets, we have every right to claim them. Our family's legacy isn't just about memories, but about tangible wealth, he snapped, his voice dripping with disdain. The bitterness in his tone stung, and Lucien felt the urge to retort, to defend his mother's honor, to protect the legacy of love she had woven into their lives. Yet, he couldn't shake the disquieting feeling that there was some truth buried beneath Etienne's venomous words. The argument escalated, the air crackling with unspoken resentments and long-buried grievances. Lucien could feel his heart pounding in his chest, each beat a reminder of the stakes at play. Margot, sensing the rising tension, stepped forward, her presence a calming force in the chaos. "Remember your mother's love," she urged, her voice soft yet firm. "Emily wouldn't want this. She fought for family, for unity." Her words hung in the air, a poignant reminder of the values Emily had instilled in them. Lucien's anger began to ebb, replaced by a profound sense of loss for the relationship he had failed to nurture with his mother. Margot's plea brought forth a wave of nostalgia, memories of holiday gatherings where laughter echoed through the halls, where love was palpable in the air, overshadowing any thoughts of material wealth. But as the evening wore on, the shadows of doubt crept in. Lucien felt a growing urgency to uncover the truth, to confront the possibility that Etienne's accusations might hold some merit. After the dinner, he excused himself, the weight of the conversation pressing heavily on his shoulders. He wandered through the estate, the familiar rooms now tinged with unease, each corner whispering secrets of the past. He found himself in his mother's bedroom, a sanctuary that had once brought him comfort. The room was untouched, a testament to Emily's meticulous nature. As he approached the ornate jewelry box that sat atop her dresser, something compelled him to investigate further. He had seen it countless times, but now it felt like a portal to the past, a vessel that might hold answers to the questions plaguing his heart. With a gentle touch, he lifted the lid, revealing the glimmering treasures inside. Rings, necklaces, and bracelets that spoke of elegance and grace. But it was the sight of an intricately carved compartment at the bottom that caught his attention. Lucien's heart raced as he opened it, revealing a collection of documents tucked away carefully. His fingers trembled as he pulled them out, the weight of anticipation heavy in the air. As he sifted through the papers, Lucien's mind raced. Could these documents validate Etienne's claims? Each piece he uncovered seemed to unravel a thread of their family's history, revealing intricate connections and financial complexities he had never imagined. A rush of conflicting emotions surged within him. Fear, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal mingled with the desire for clarity. With a heavy heart, Lucien made his way back to find Margot. She was in the sitting room, her gaze distant, lost in her own reverie. The moment she noticed his presence, her expression shifted to one of concern, sensing the turmoil within him. He approached her slowly, the documents clutched tightly in his hands, a tangible manifestation of the conflict raging in his mind. "Margot," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I found something. Documents that might prove Etienne's claims." The revelation hung in the air, heavy and fraught with implications. He could see the flicker of concern in her eyes, a reflection of the uncertainty that had settled over them both. Instead of reacting with fear or anger, Margot's demeanor shifted to one of calm resolve. She gestured for him to sit beside her, her presence a steady anchor amidst the storm of emotions. They sat together, the weight of the documents between them, and Lucien felt the warmth of her support. "We need to understand this," she said, her voice a soothing balm against his frayed nerves. Together, they pored over the documents, piecing together fragments of a family history that felt increasingly complex. As they read, they discovered that the intricacies of their family's finances were far more tangled than either had anticipated. Lucien's mind raced, grappling with the implications of what they were uncovering. This was not just about money. It was about legacy, about the very essence of the family he had long felt distanced from. With each revelation, Lucien's heart grew heavier, but Margot remained unwavering, her presence a reminder of the love that had once defined the family. They shared a moment of silence, the weight of the truth pressing down on them. Lucien felt a surge of gratitude for Margot, for her unwavering loyalty, and for the way she embodied the very spirit of Emily's love. As the night deepened around them, Lucien realized that the confrontation with Etienne was inevitable. The truth needed to be unveiled, not just for the sake of inheritance, but to honor the memory of his mother. With Margot by his side, he felt a newfound resolve. Together, they would navigate the tumultuous waters of family history, and when the time came, he would confront Etienne with the strength that came from understanding, love, and the desire for reconciliation. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but Lucien felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. As he and Margot prepared for the confrontation, he understood that this journey was not merely about uncovering hidden assets or defending his mother's legacy. It was about forging connections, healing wounds, and embracing the complexities of family that had long been buried. In that moment, he made a silent promise to honor Emily's memory, to reclaim the love and unity that had once defined their family. As the atmosphere thickened with tension, Margot stood firm, her heart pounding as she prepared to unveil a secret that could change everything. The fireplace crackled softly, casting flickering shadows against the walls of the grand estate. Lucien's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief as Margot took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "Etienne is not just an estranged cousin," she began, her eyes darting between Lucien and Etienne, who stood frozen in disbelief. "He is your mother's sister's son. That makes him a rightful heir to this estate, just as you are." The revelation hung in the air, heavy and palpable, as if the very fabric of their family history had been torn apart and exposed. Lucien's mind raced, his thoughts swirling like the smoke from the fire. He felt a rush of emotions: anger, betrayal, confusion. Etienne, who had appeared before him as an adversary, was suddenly transformed into something more complex: family, a connection that had been hidden beneath layers of resentment and misunderstanding. The realization that they shared blood forged an unexpected bond, one that Lucien had never anticipated. Etienne's demeanor shifted as he processed the information. The coldness in his eyes softened, replaced by a flicker of vulnerability. For all the bravado he had displayed in their earlier confrontation, the weight of this new truth began to unravel his defenses. He looked at Lucien, no longer just a rival, but a cousin, someone with whom he shared a profound connection, albeit marred by years of estrangement and conflict. Margot stepped closer to Lucien, her presence a grounding force amid the chaos. She had spent decades in the service of his family, witnessing the highs and lows, the love and the pain. Her loyalty to Emily and her unwavering commitment to the truth had led her to this moment. She knew that the complexities of family were often intertwined with deep-seated emotions and hidden truths, and she hoped this revelation would pave the way for healing. Lucien's heart raced as he struggled to grasp the implications of Margot's words. The estate, the wealth, the legacy. These had always defined his relationship with his mother and their family. But now, with Etienne's true identity revealed, he felt a shift in perspective. The importance of blood ties began to overshadow the allure of material possessions. Lucien realized that love and connection mattered far more than inheritance or wealth. He took a step forward, his gaze locked on Etienne. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, a shared history neither had fully understood until this moment. Lucien extended his hand, a gesture of reconciliation, an invitation to forge a new relationship built on understanding rather than animosity. Etienne hesitated for a heartbeat, then reached out, their hands clasping in an unexpected embrace, a moment that felt both fragile and powerful. The warmth of that connection spread through Lucien, dispelling the coldness that had lingered in the corners of his heart since his mother's passing. He saw in Etienne's eyes a reflection of his own pain, the loneliness that had defined their lives. They were both victims of a family legacy twisted by secrets and misunderstandings, but in this moment, they were also more than that. They were family. As they pulled back from the embrace, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The tension that had once threatened to shatter the fragile peace was replaced by a sense of unity, a determination to move forward together. Margot watched with a satisfied smile, her heart swelling with hope. She had witnessed the power of love and forgiveness before, and she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for Lucien and Etienne. The holiday season was upon them, and the spirit of Christmas filled the air like a warm embrace. They took a moment to breathe, to absorb the magnitude of what had just transpired. Margot suggested they move to the dining room, where she had prepared a festive meal, a celebration of love and family. The table was adorned with vibrant colors, a feast that reflected the beauty of the season and the joy of new beginnings. As they gathered around the table, Lucien felt a sense of belonging he had long thought lost. The laughter and stories shared during the meal filled the void of silence that had long surrounded him. Margot, with her nurturing presence, orchestrated the evening with grace, encouraging conversation and connection between the two men. They spoke of their childhoods, the dreams they had for the future, and the shared legacy they now carried together. Lucien glanced at the decorations that adorned the room, each ornament a reminder of his mother's love and the warmth she had tried to create despite the distances that had grown between them. He could almost hear her laughter mingling with the joyous atmosphere, a ghostly presence that felt both comforting and bittersweet. In that moment, he understood that this celebration was not just an act of honoring the holiday, but also a tribute to Emily, a way to keep her spirit alive in their hearts. As the evening wore on, the conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time in a long while, Lucien felt a sense of peace wash over him. He glanced at Etienne, who was animatedly sharing a story about their mother's sister, a woman Lucien had never known but whose legacy now felt more tangible. They laughed together, and with each shared moment, the bond between them deepened, transforming their relationship from strangers to family. As the night drew to a close, Margot brought out a small box, beautifully wrapped in festive paper. With a knowing smile, she handed it to Lucien. Inside lay a delicate ornament, a replica of the one Emily had cherished most, a symbol of family, love, and the connections that endure even beyond death. Lucien held it in his hands, feeling the weight of its significance. It was a reminder that despite the pain of loss, there was always room for healing and new beginnings. Together, they decorated the tree, each ornament a testament to the stories they had shared and the memories they would create moving forward. Margot stepped back, her heart full as she watched the two men bond over their shared experiences, their laughter echoing in the grand room. The warmth of their connection illuminated the space, banishing the shadows that had lingered for too long. As the clock chimed midnight, signaling the arrival of Christmas Day, Lucien felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey that had begun with sorrow and estrangement had transformed into something beautiful, a family reborn, united in love and understanding. In the midst of the holiday festivities, he realized that the true essence of family was not defined by blood alone, but by love, forgiveness, and the willingness to embrace one another despite the past. And so, in the heart of the estate, where once only silence had reigned, a new tradition was born. Lucien, Margot, and Etienne gathered together, their hearts intertwined, ready to honor Emily's memory as a family united. In the glow of the Christmas lights, they found peace and joy, a testament to the power of love that can heal even the deepest wounds.